the group, everyone, or welcome if it's your very first time. Before we get started, I just want to direct your attention to our upcoming partnership class on Sunday, November the 13th. It takes place during the second worship service at the 11 o'clock hour. Will be an hour or less. We talk about the vision and the mission, what we teach as a church, next steps you can take as you grow in your relationship with Jesus, and how you can be a part of making all of that happen. And if you have the app, that is the best place to sign up. If you need info on how to do it, just ask your group leader. They can do that. As we jump in today, I want you to think about your most recent, maybe a vacation, a movie you saw, a restaurant you went to, a monument you visited, maybe a football game that you went to. And your thought was, I wish that they, and you had the name of a person, I wish they were here right now. And maybe we do our best to send a text message or take a picture or post a reel, and it looks amazing. But it just can't substitute for actually being there. Hey, I wish you could see this right now. I wish you could hear this right now. I wish you could experience the same thing that I am experiencing right now. Because if you could, then you'd feel the way I do. And sometimes we even think that way about church, right? An Easter service. A Christmas Eve in the park. Maybe it was a regular Sunday where the message hit just right, or a moment of worship was just so emotional, and it was like God was standing next to you, and you thought, or maybe you said, I wish blank was sitting next to me. Can I tell you that one of the easiest things that you can do right now is simply invite someone to come and sit with you. Hey, come and see for yourself. And you're not telling them what to think. You're not telling them what to believe. You're not telling them what you think they're going to experience. You're just simply saying, come and see for yourself. And you're believing that if they could get in a space, hear what you hear, see what you see, experience what you have experienced, then they might bump into Jesus like you have. That's where we're ultimately going to go in this series. But the starting point for all of that is that you have had your own experience with Jesus. So for the next 3 weeks, we're hanging out in the book of John, chapter 4. And here we find the longest recorded conversation that Jesus has with any individual. Let me just remind you of the situation. Hopefully you listened to the message, but let me just remind you of the situation. You're going to read the chapter with your group, but some fascinating things take place here that we might normally miss. One is that Jesus breaks some cultural norms when he speaks to a woman. Men didn't normally speak to women. And Jews like Jesus didn't normally associate with Samaritans like this woman. They were considered to be outsiders and half-breeds. And we know she's in an interesting living situation. 5 previous marriages and currently living with a boyfriend. And a lot of that is likely the reason that she comes to get water in the middle of the day. Most women go early in the morning when it's cool and they make it a social event like shopping. She comes alone in the heat, and it's likely that she's trying to avoid having to speak to anyone. And she pulls up to the well, and Jesus is sitting there. And he leads with a very simple question. Hey, how about a drink? And here Jesus is going to use the well and the water and the chore that she repeats every single day to try to connect the dots for her spiritually. She's surprised that he asked her for a drink because of all the reasons we just listed. And then Jesus turned the corner to start touching the need in her life. He knows her situation, and so he uses it to say something about himself. Hey, every person who has ever come here to get water goes thirsty again. What if you could have something better? I've got some water that will connect you to God, water that will give you eternal life. Well, she's not catching on to the fact that Jesus is speaking about himself, and so he starts to peel back the layers of her life, what he knows about this woman and the relationships that she is pursuing, that looking for something, that there is a place that will always remain forever empty, always leave her thirsty and extremely disappointed. I mean, this tends to be true for all of us, that we have this searching at times for something deeper in our life. And it's evidenced by one of 2 approaches, right? Either we're running from something and to something, and we might not even realize it, or we're running from something and to something, and it's quite intentional on our part. Maybe for her, she doesn't realize what she's doing, or maybe she's running on purpose. What Jesus is trying to get her to see is that the thirst or the pursuit is real. We just have a tendency to pursue, or in this terminology, drink the wrong thing at times. We try to quench that craving in a lot of different things, but it's Jesus who freely provides this life-giving water. All of those longings or those searchings or that running is meant to lead us to God Himself. So the question ultimately is, what if you could come here one day and find something that really satisfied you? Now, I'm going to kind of leave this hanging and let you talk it out in your group because there's a whole lot here to discuss. But could you maybe imagine or picture Jesus leaning against the well or pointing to it and saying, that water, that money, that pleasure, that power, that man, that woman, that status, that position or feeling or experience, that water right there will always leave you thirsty for more because it wasn't meant to satisfy you. So you have two options. One, will you still go back to what you know and what doesn't work and just keep repeating it day after day? Or are you open to hanging out at the well a while and sitting with Jesus, believing that you can get from Him what you cannot get anywhere else?